The way I was training is I would start with sitting and breathing for 20 to 30 minutes. Then I would do vigorous movement. Then I would do a little more sitting and breathing. Then I would work standing meditation. And then I would finish with seated breathing exercises again. And so I had a very good routine that usually ended up being 2 to 3 hours, depending on how I felt. Then one day, basically 10 minutes into the moving portion, I felt like there was something really wrong because of the chest tightness and pain. And then my heart started fluttering in an irregular way. And I realized, stop your exercise, go sit down and just breathe, which I did, and I recovered. But I didn't go back and finish the practice, which I had never done before. I decided take off. And that's when I knew there was something wrong.
So when you say you recovered, what did that mean?
Recovering meant that the chest pain stopped, that I could breathe normally, and that I no longer had that feeling like I was about to keel over with the pain in the heart or the irregular heartbeat and the heavy chest tightness.
So now you've never had anything like that at all, right?
Not like that symptom where it was as if my heart was malfunctioning.
Did it strike you as that possible COVID right then because you have awareness of that?
I wasn't sure at the point, but then the joint aches began, where after finishing a workout routine, my ankles and my shoulders would be so sore and tight that it was different than anything that I'd experienced before. And I had a very good supplement regime that I was doing to reduce inflammation and to increase blood and oxygen circulation through the body. But it was the body aches and then the very, very deep feelings of fatigue that clued me in to what was really going on, where the overall combination could be described as shortness of breath, chest pains, heart irregularities, and then a very, very deep tissue, painful, achy feeling throughout the whole body that was very hard to shake and then came on very heavily at night. So it was as if exercise was totally different at this point, because I no longer felt like I was getting the super recovery that you usually get from doing these type of internal strengthening exercises. The type of exercise that I practice is as low impact as possible, and then is based on uniting the breathing with upper body and lower body movement. So that what I noticed was that usually when you practice correctly according to these principles that are linked with internal martial arts like Tai Chi, the next day after you practice, you don't feel achy or weak or painful. You don't feel like you went to a weightlifting gym and every muscle in your body has been broken down, is sore, and has to recover. You feel okay, and you can go and you can do another routine. You don't need the 2 days or the recovery.
So the recovery you're talking about is when you've overexerted yourself and your system needs to recover from having to deal with what you just did to your system.
Yeah, most Western exercise, the way it works is you're breaking down particularly weights, but running also. You're breaking down tissue, and then your body gets stronger or your endurance gets better when you rest. In this case, the normal resting that I had been doing was not resulting in a recovery because all the connective tissue in the body was so inflamed. The main symptom that everybody is getting is severe inflammation responses after having been exposed to the virus. So anything that you can do to lower inflammation in your body can make a huge difference in terms of your recovery and your adaptation to having had COVID. And so I specifically lowered sugar for example, which I eat very little of to begin with, but that's a great place to start rather. Many kinds of normal Western exercise, particularly running, high impact aerobics, and heavy weightlifting, are very, very stressful for the body. And so a lot of doctors who don't have the concept of the difference between internal strength training or internal exercises, which are breathing based, versus Western athletics or sports, high performance type of practices, will just recommend cutting your normal exercise routine by half after COVID. And I don't agree with that at all, because it may take you much longer after having had COVID to build up to the point where you should be doing half of your normal running or weightlifting routine or whatever else that you've done, which raises the heartbeat too quickly or too intensely, and may be way too much for your body. What I recommend is slowly building back up gradually, depending on how you feel, listening to your body and connecting your breathing with your movements so that you're strengthening the body and the immune system from the inside out in a much gentler way, and allowing your body slowly to come back to homeostasis, where you're balanced and you feel good. And then if you want, you can go back to running, 5 miles or lifting weights for 90 minutes, 3 days a week. There was a German study that showed basically 70 or 80% of people, even if they'd had no COVID symptoms, had an inflamed heart 3 months after being exposed to the illness.
Right.
So if your heart is inflamed, you should not be going back to regular exercise. You should be walking gradually and slowly. You should be increasing that carefully. You should definitely not be running hills or running stairs or doing anything that involves the no gain, no pain Western exercise mentality, which is very, very hard on the body and in particular the heart. So what you want to be doing is actually lengthening and slowing and deepening the breathing process, which is why almost every aspect of your training and recovery should revolve around a balanced approach where you build up slowly, and then in particular where you try to slow and deepen your normal breathing pattern, and then also slow your brain waves, because you're in a high stress state where you are in a fight or flight sympathetic nervous system activation mode. And so the idea of using internal strength training and breathing and meditation theory is that you become more and more skilled at switching into the rest and digest parasympathetic mode of your nervous system. And that's done progressively by training that includes as much of a focus on breathing and meditation in conjunction with the movement as it does on actually building strength. But you can build strength also, which comes from standing meditation. And then you can also build the overall endurance level by doing smooth, continuous movement in which the upper body, the lower body, and the breathing pattern is synchronized. That also synchronizes and integrates your overall brain function, which may be disconnected because of the brain inflammation, which also occurs after having been exposed to the virus. The basic idea in Asian medical theory is that pain and inflammation are caused by impaired circulation in the body, and that most people are not breathing correctly. There are estimates that 90% of people are not breathing as deeply and fully as they should be.
Which does what?
Which lowers the amount of oxygen that's available to the brain, and then which restricts circulation to the extremities.
So we're deprived. We're oxygen deprived or nutritionally deprived.
And also the breathing pattern is stimulating the sympathetic nervous system, which results in feelings of fight, flight, or freeze, which is a high stress, high cortisol level type of being where you feel terrible because you feel as if you're being threatened or you're under attack, because this goes back to our ancient survival mechanism when we were looking for the saber-toothed tiger or for the leopard or for the poisonous snake. And that can be triggered now at any time by just normal modern anxiety, which has now been radically increased by COVID and the stress of lockdown and financial uncertainty and all of these other problems.
Please don't go on.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone's quite aware.
Yeah. The Asian model is that after the age of 40, you should be switching to an internal mode of exercise because it's much less stress on the body. And then the internal type of exercise that synchronizes breathing with the movement of the upper and lower body, and then includes meditation, which switches you from fast brainwave states to slower brainwave states, is all based on the idea that the correct way to achieve longevity and health is to slow everything down and then gradually increase it, but not to push past about an 80% level of effort, right? So that last hitting the wall type of approach that runners often describe, where you have to push. That's also the period that's going to stimulate a heart attack or a stroke in someone who has an overly inflamed system or who has a bunch of the underlying conditions. And then when someone is recovering from an illness in particular, they shouldn't go running back to normal, hard, push, struggle, no gain, no pain types of exercise. They should build up slowly, and then as they get stronger over a period of time, they can get back into the type of routine they had before if they want to. But in my case, this has taken 6 months to come back to the level that I was before. And I definitely feel if I had tried to do my normal routine or even half of my normal routine when I was at very high levels of inflammation, it could have been damaging. And the idea is an approach where you're not overdoing the exertion level and you're listening to how is my breathing, how is my alignment, and then where are my brain waves? So it's very, very important to get to the point of what we could call nervous system awareness, where you can distinguish between being in the 3 fast brainwave states, which are beta, high beta, and gamma, versus the 3 slow brainwave states, which are alpha, theta, and delta. And delta corresponds to deep dreamless sleep, theta corresponds to dreaming, and alpha corresponds to meditation. So generating those slow brainwave states while you exercise is actually incredibly good for your body and your brain, because it's giving your body the support that you naturally give yourself when you have a really, really good night's sleep and go through all of those stages in a healthy way and recharge your whole system. And in addition, it's going through those stages that enables your body to create stem cells within the bone marrow. And so the more you train yourself to be able to exercise using slow brainwave states and meditation, the more your body regains its vibrant levels of health that are natural. But it takes a period of time, and it's very, very different than the conventional go to the gym and struggle and sweat and feel like you're going to pass out approach, which is often used by football teams or wrestlers or combat sports. And so it's the idea of smooth training, soft training, gentle training is very, very significant at this time for anybody who wants to get back to a healthy level. You could trigger a relapse very easily. If you do too much too soon, you can get worse. A third of the people have these lingering side effects. And then even people who've recovered still notice differences in terms of how they feel and in terms of the brain fog, for example, as opposed to how they were before. And I've also noticed that the energy levels of the body and obviously the production of cellular energy or ATP production is different, and you need to approach it from a nutritional perspective and make sure that you don't have any nutritional deficiencies.
By doing what? How do you do
and so it's, first of all, just in the same way that 90% of people are not breathing correctly, you could argue that a large proportion of people have magnesium deficiencies, have essential fatty acid or DHA and EPA deficiencies, which are can be supplemented with fish oil. And then the other idea is that vitamin D deficiencies are incredibly hard on the heart. And the vitamin D needs to be combined with boron, magnesium, zinc, and vitamin K for absorption, right? So a lot of people don't know what supplements to get in the right dosages. And then a lot of people don't know how to combine foods with the supplements to maximize the body's return to homeostasis. Your body wants to get better. Your body will and should get better, but you have to give it the nutrients as well as the soft, gentle, non-stressful approach using breathing and slow brainwave training to rewire the nervous system and then enhance the immune system. And so it's all doable, but if you leave out an essential ingredient like magnesium or vitamin D, it means it'll take a lot longer, and then the body still needs those nutrients for every aspect of healthy brain function. And so there's actually one doctor after another who's now saying that back pain in particular and other joint issues are directly linked with patterns of tightness and rigidity that are held in the connective tissue and in the muscles throughout the body. And so that if you release those patterns of tightness that are in the fascia, that are in the joints, that are in the spine, then automatically there's much better circulation. And then many areas of the body that are painful or sore or have a chronic injury, then they can heal. So instead of being a normal athlete who's training around injuries and constant pain in different areas of the body and going from surgery to surgery and pharmaceutical painkillers and anti-inflammatories, you can do all of this with the correct regimen of food, exercise, breathing, and meditation. And it's much healthier because you're not getting the side effects that are potentially part of a normal pharmaceutical regimen that a lot of doctors will recommend.
Can you explain or maybe demonstrate even breathing techniques, what you're talking about when you're talking about people don't know how to breathe. How does one breathe?
All right, that's a very good question. And so if you were to sit on the edge of a chair or a stool with your hips higher than your knees, and then slowly opening the hands as you inhale through the nose, slowly exhaling through the mouth, and gradually lengthening the breathing process. Right? The slow movement with the slow breathing slows the brain waves and reduces stress and anxiety substantially.
You're doing the hand movements.
Yes. So I'm opening and closing my hands.
What's the breathing you're doing now? When's the inhale and how's the exhale?
I'm exhaling as I'm bringing my hands together. And I'm inhaling as I'm opening my hands. Right? And I would try to do this for up to 100 times or more, right? Because it takes a period of time to slow the brain waves. But the idea is that our assumption is that our lungs are moving when we're breathing, but it's actually all of the muscles in the chest that are expanding and contracting that are affecting our breathing. And in a normal person at about the age of 5 years old, the breathing pattern switches from the lower abdomen to the upper chest, which we do for the rest of our lives. So part of this internal strength training theory that is part of Asian internal martial arts and medicine is to return the breathing pattern to that of a child. And you'll notice that if you look at a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, they're breathing from the lower abdomen, and their chest and their shoulders are moving very little. That's the opposite of the breathing pattern for many adults, right? And so you can just work on this when you're lying down, when you're sitting, or when you're standing, and it'll make a huge difference as you change the basic habitual pattern that you're in and return the breathing to your lower abdomen or your diaphragm.
Why is that good? Breathing from the diaphragm.
The idea is much better utilization of oxygen by the cells, much better blood and oxygen circulation, and then much better organ function in terms of your heart and your brain. And then the other key idea is that the oldest brain in our body is actually within our gut. And so
now, what do you mean the oldest brain? Because that's the first that's developed? Is that what
yes. Our gut brain is developed in terms of fetal development before the central nervous system. You're taking in nutrition through the umbilical cord, which is connected to your mother.
Yeah.
So the theory is that you are regaining the ability to use your lower torso to generate energy, which is what you did before you breathed air or ate food. And that if you train correctly using this internal methodology that we're explaining at Centerpoint, you then have the ability to increase the way your body and cells produce energy by reactivating your abdomen, which is also called the enteric nervous system. In addition, in the last few years, it's been discovered that every aspect of your mood is being determined by the good to bad bacteria ratio within your intestines. And so at this point, the health of your lower abdomen and your enteric nervous system is considered to be a key aspect of regulating mood, lowering stress, and then overall well-being. So connecting the lower abdomen, which is considered to be the battery system within your body, and activating that is an essential part of yoga, Tai Chi, and meditation. And Western medicine has now come on board 100%. And then the other thing to remember is that your vagus nerve connects your brainstem with all of the organs. So Western medicine now believes that the reason Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, breath work are so healthy and positive for your body is because you're gently stimulating the vagus nerve with each breath, and that is balancing organ function and then synchronizing the brain with the organs for greater and greater well-being. And so this idea of breathing slowly, deeply, and naturally, and then moving the upper body and lower body in a synchronized way with the breathing has the ability to totally rewire the nervous system and totally integrate aspects and levels and portions of the brain that may not be operating smoothly and coherently with one another. There's a concept called brain integration, which is becoming more and more important, in which it's now recognized that your brain is actually to some degree working like a Swiss watch, where every part has to move in a synchronized way for the pace to be kept smoothly and accurately. And so the idea is not only do we have left and right brain hemispheres, which need to be synchronized for coherent function, we also have upper, lower, and middle areas of the brain. And then we have a human brain, a mammal brain, and a reptile brain. And for optimum function, all those levels have to be smoothly coordinated and functioning coherently in a synchronized way. When any single part goes too fast or too slow or is disconnected, which is what can occur from a head injury, or which can occur from high stress over a long period of time, then the body and the nervous system can go out of balance. And everything we're doing at Centerpoint is to recreate this balanced level of functioning, which is natural, but still needs to be developed and encouraged by synchronizing movement, breathing, and brain waves in a way that stimulates the vagus nerve and causes you to relax into the rest and digest function versus the high stress fight or flight mode, which most people are in on a daily basis. Well, the idea is correct internal training, which is also called self-cultivation in terms of Asian methodology, that you can practice because your practice is revolving around your breathing. You can practice when you're sitting, you can practice when you're lying down, you can practice when you're walking, you can practice when you're moving, and you can practice when you're standing. And actually a complete regimen, which is what we're introducing with Centerpoint, which is very similar to what I do on a daily basis, is including as many of these different modes as possible. But the primary three that you should notice a smooth recovery occurring from doing on a regular basis involve moving and walking, sitting, and then standing. And this is a perfect example that you gave where the person feels completely defeated and horrible after 10 minutes of conventional anaerobic or aerobic exercise, which means weightlifting, which is strength training, or probably walking on a treadmill or working on a bicycle. which is cardio training. And so this internal approach that we're suggesting is building the strength of the body from the inside out, and it's based on synchronizing slow, deep, comfortable, natural breathing with the movement, and in particular with the feet and the hands. And so you can go much longer. And what I would say is if this individual can do 10 minutes and then gets very fatigued from conventional exercise, they should switch to another approach where they're doing 20 or 30 minutes of internal exercises, which probably their body can handle. And then they can sit and breathe when they need to and still get to that hour or 90 minutes of movement and breathing, which will eventually restore the body to health. But this takes a period of time. And it may take 3 months. It may take 6 months. It may take a year. You've had a serious illness that has thrown your system way out of whack. And so it takes steady, consistent practice to get the results. And this is true of any type of internal approach, whether it's yoga, whether it's Tai Chi, whether it's meditation. And it's a question of time and then balancing the normal functions of the body by synchronizing the breathing and the nervous system with the movement, which is very, very different than the normal strength and cardio training that everybody does when they're healthy. The body is inflamed, including the organs, right? So people have heart issues, lung issues, kidney issues, brain issues. You want to do everything possible in terms of diet and supplements to lower inflammation, but then you also want to be stimulating the vagus nerve, which is affecting organ function and allowing all your organs to gradually recover without greater stress. And the idea here is that this internal approach that's the basis of Tai Chi and other internal martial arts is actually based on focusing on the organs, and you're breathing and holding your body in a way that the organs will get healthier through the practice. And obviously taking any stress that you can off of the heart and the lungs is very, very important, because too much stress then causes this extreme fatigue reaction, which ends up being much closer to chronic fatigue than anything else, which is an inflammatory condition in many cases. Eliminate any foods that cause inflammation, any foods that are hard to digest, lower sugar as much as possible, lower wheat and dairy, or eliminate wheat and dairy, and then add in supplements like turmeric and curcumin. Boswellia is an herb that's very good for joint issues. And then many people, and obviously you check with a doctor first, right? I'm not a doctor. I've studied from 6 different Chinese doctors, but that's different than a Western doctor. And I don't want to recommend anything that could conflict with a prescription that you've been given. So anything that is suggested on Centerpoint, you should always check with a doctor first. But a number of people have told me they've gotten very good with good results with osteoarthritis symptoms, which is pain in the bones and joints, with boron, as well as curcumin and turmeric. Fish oils, which are high in DHA and EPA, make a big difference in the joints. A number of people with chronic fatigue have taken D-ribose for 3 weeks and then been able to get out of bed. It increases heart function. CoQ10, very, very important for the heart. There's a combination that I've used extensively that I got from a cardiologist, which is carnitine, magnesium, D-ribose, and CoQ10. Then you should be increasing vitamin D and making sure you don't have any nutritional deficiencies by taking a very high quality liquid or capsule multivitamin and mineral. Not a tablet.
Right.
Yeah, junk food inflames every aspect of your system. A lot of packaged products have preservatives, have pesticides, have different additives that render them relatively toxic and inflammatory to the body. Switch to what's called clean eating as much as possible, and obviously gain the ability to distinguish between what foods that you eat inflame the body versus what foods don't. In some cases, tomatoes and eggplants and peppers can be inflammatory for some people. Everybody's different.
Everyone's different.
And you have to work with this. And a lot of people feel much, much better when they eliminate caffeine, when they eliminate dairy, when they eliminate wheat and gluten, and when they eliminate sugar. They feel much better when they eat vegetables, and then eat a balanced diet in terms of proteins, essential fatty acids, and carbohydrates, so that you're not living on junk carbohydrates or anything that is simply causing the reward circuits in your brain to go off like a piece of cake with ice cream and a cup of coffee, which may feel great when you're healthy, but is going to stress out your body ultimately, and does not give your brain and nervous system the nutritional support that you need at this time. Intentionally balancing dopamine and serotonin production in the brain and body using serotonin and dopamine precursors. You can get them at a health food store.
Oh, I see.
And tryptophan, again, check with a doctor, because or check on drugs.com, because these definitely can conflict with prescription drugs that you're taking. But you can take phenylalanine and tyrosine for dopamine on an empty stomach in the morning, and you can take 5-HTP and tryptophan on an empty stomach before you go to bed. And then, of course, you can add in some melatonin and some theanine, and you will balance out, you will feel better, and you will eventually feel as good or better than you ever have.